knowing your lot, knowing your role. Is that where you are? Are you grounded in this? Do you know what your role is? What part do you play? Are you making sure your name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life? Well, here's our example. We have excellent examples.
You know, I was thinking about this the other day. I said, there ain't no guarantee for me to make it or any of y'all to make it. That's why you got to keep diligent. And it was fear in my heart. Like, what if you don't make it? And my mind, well, I said, well, there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm gonna keep being diligent, Brodies. I'm gonna stay diligent. Because of the fear. I do it because this is all. Hey, the movie Officer and Gentleman, Lou Gossip said, you know, why do you want to be a flyer? You know, why you want to be a, what was that, a Marine or Air Force? I think it was Air Force Academy or training camp. And he said, because this guy said, I want to fly jets. And Lou Gossip said, my grandmother want to fly jets. And then he said, why you here? Why you here? He said, you ain't got no friends, you got customers. Anyway, he got an Oscar for that too. He played the hell out of the drill sergeant. And he said, I ain't got nowhere else to go. I got nowhere else to go. Well, guess what? Why am I in Israel? Because I ain't got nowhere else to go. Where am I going to go? We're going to join, get with Sonnet and them and be a black conscious person? Hang out with Yaki? Let me do herbal shows with Yaki? But no, this is where I'm supposed to be, man. I ain't got no place. What the fuck am I going to do doing something else? This is all I know. This is a part of me. Y'all can't get out of this. I'm going somewhere else. The Tahar, that's you, Elder Tahar. No parts of Tahar. Oh, yeah. I haven't drove the New York City train system in years, but I used to get on, you know, use them trains. I'm talking about before the, you know, I'll use Uber. You know, I got money in my account, Uber account, so I'll hop in an Uber. But if I'm in the city, this is we talking about 10 years ago. Get on the train. There's always somebody. You Tahar, right? Yeah, I know. I'll be watching your video, you know. And at first you be like, is this nigga friend or foe? You know. Anyway, I'm sorry. I can't get out of this. Anywhere like vocab. Vocab can't be an atheist because people that ain't you vocab. You don't believe in God no more. He's stuck to what he got to do.
And that's what the true faith is. Having the names Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, and praying that Rakah Kadash still be with you. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah Kadash. Double honors the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth in sincerity. And a shout out to Yakibs out there in the four corners of the earth proclaim this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kadash, Brakatum. So, couple weeks at this so far, my videos are still staying on YouTube. And I've even said a couple trigger words, not purposely, but just, you know, in the flow, going with the flow, you know, in the spirit of things to say. Like when I was at camp yesterday, you know, finally my ailment had healed, and, you know, I'm feeling pretty good today, you know. So, you know, let's get into this because they're been planning a preemptive attack against Iran, and Dabu 7's reporting on this, so, you know, he gets a lot of facts, you know, and sometimes certain things that he knows about that, you know, may not even be on RT or on any of the other outlets, right? But here's what's happening behind the scenes while everybody's distracted with Venezuela. Yes, Venezuela is a big move, and there's a lot of moves being made, you know, but you know, pretty much though, this is now a time of seizing control, okay, and using the opportunity, because Satan Yahoo and Trump met, and we already know about the green light that was given for the U.S. to go ahead and invade Venezuela and take over, and you know, vice versa, the U.S. given the green light to go ahead and attack Iran.
This is Dabu 7. And it looks like we have a series of events here that are showing that a military operation is about to go down in regards to Iran. We know that Maduro has been captured and things are kind of fluid with the whole Caribbean, and there's definitely going to be some blowback. Something's going to happen in response to all these moves. You can almost guarantee that. But one thing is for sure, Iran is calling for this right now. They're saying that they're expecting the U.S. and Israel to hit them here within the next 72 hours or so. You can see right here, multiple headlines. They're preparing for a new wave of American-Israeli attacks in the region. And a lot of signs are pointing that way. Another big clue or hint that this is going down is there's been an onslaught of military assets heading across the ocean and into the region, into the area. A ton left out of Fort Campbell here in Kentucky, and the Night Stalkers that were conducting the whole Maduro raid, they are now heading toward Iran. So we have a wave of C-17s. We've got the Night Stalkers in motion. Many that are connected to the military say, man, you're only making moves like this if something's about to go down. It looks like indeed something's about to happen. Big time here. Signals all over the place. Plus, we have huge explosions that have already started inside of Iran. You can see on the right, that is the first explosion that happened today. All the talk around that was sabotage, and they're not sure what caused it. And here within the past 5 minutes, a secondary explosion, a massive explosion, has been reported inside of Iran. So we've got these explosions going off with massive protests on the ground that we know our government is backing and supporting, per se, color revolution, and to cause chaos to try to oust Khomeini and to basically overthrow the power structure in Iran. We've seen it coming for a long time. It looks like they're actually gearing up for another wave here. And this may be more drawn out and larger than the last series of events that we've seen that just struck a couple spots and then they were done. They were like, we took out their nuclear capability, which checked out to not be true. So the targets, yet to be seen. One thing's for sure though, everything's in motion and it's going down here in terms of this. I'd expect big moves from here. Join me for the live stream. One live.
And like everything else, so I've caught a few of his D-Live streams, you know. And he finds that, you know, he finds things that, you know, like, you know, was there any headlines about those C-31s leaving Kentucky? No, but he has those reports, right? You know, so it's good to be well aware what's happening. At least 35 killed, more than 1,200 detained as Iran protest enters its 10th day. And this was written on the 6th of January, which is yesterday. So, look at this, though. I mean, isn't this convenient? U.S. President Trump threatened to attack if authorities violently kill peaceful protesters. You know, again, you know, the Syrian rebels were also peaceful protesters, you know. Can't get into that enough. We all know that this is about an overthrow. At least 35 people have been killed in the ongoing protests in Iran, which entered their 10th day on Tuesday. Human rights activist news agencies said Monday that more than 1,200 people had been detained during the unrest, which erupted in late December in response to spiraling economic conditions. So, like everything else, though, you know, they're threatening intervention, you know, and of course Iran said right back that, look, you stay out of our internal affairs. Netanyahu reportedly asked Putin to assure Iran of no Israeli attack plans. So, why would he say that? That usually is a tout to say that, oh, we're not going to attack, oh, but we're going to attack. You know, I mean, it's just like, you know that anybody that knows this guy knows that whatever he says, he's going to do complete opposite of. Israel's public broadcaster said on Monday that Prime Minister Netanyahu asked Russian President Vladimir Putin to pass a reassurance message to Iran saying that Israeli state does not intend to attack it over concern about a possible preemptive strike against Tehran. Official broadcaster said Netanyahu requested that Putin deliver messages to Iran to reassure that Israeli state has no plans to launch an attack. It added that these messages were recently passed to Iran, including phone calls between Netanyahu and Putin, amid fears that Tehran might strike Israeli state to prevent a possible Israeli strike. Okay. So they're afraid that they might do a preemptive. You know, Iran has never done any preemptives before. You know, so pretty much anything they do is going to be in response to. You have to fire upon them first. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said early on Monday during a speech to the Knesset that Israeli state sent a message to Iran that if Israeli state is attacked, the consequences will be severe. So pretty much so, you know, oh, you attack us, you know, it's going to be severe, right? You know, so you can see where that's going. And like everything else, though, social media being used to amp up the war, you know, and yeah, hook, line, and sinker, you know. I believe some AI is doing it, but a lot of people are, you know, touting, you know, and playing around with South Park and with Breaking Bad and, you know, showing Maduro as, you know, a criminal and all this, you know, just, you know, amp it up how, you know, the whole war, you know, the propaganda, which it has nothing to do with narco trafficking, you know. Although South Park really shows Pete Hegseth as a fucking douche, you know, and Trump as a faggot, you know, which they're all child molesters anyways. You know, so this child molester, and the greatest child molesting, yeah, is the CIA, you know, because they're the ones that control it all. These are the Amalekites, you know, because Amalek, Mossad, is behind all of these operations, these insurrections, and just pretty much, though, you know, they're your 1% controlling everything.
Well, if you were online over the past few days, you might have noticed something. You might have noticed a cleverly crafted psychological operation unfolding. MAGA influencers and random accounts sharing all kinds of fake or old videos. I wonder why that happens. Like, who gets the marketing?
Sounds like AI.
Everyone's like tweeting the same
Sounds like
thing,
AI
the
is
same
generating them.
Structure, using the same videos. It's all very curious. Using old videos or even fake videos or AI videos, purportedly showing happy Venezuelans who are taking to the streets by the thousands in celebration of the CIA's regime change operation in that country.
Just like they were happy in Iraq and Libya.
Fake videos or old videos. Here's Nick Shirley, who does some incredible journalism in Minnesota with the Somalis, right? But tweets this: wait a minute, the mainstream media lied to us again? People of Venezuela actually didn't like being ruled by narco-terrorists. World Cup-style celebrations are erupting all across Venezuela at the moment. Congratulations to the people of Venezuela. But when it says World Cup-style celebrations, they actually were World Cup style celebration in celebration of soccer games.
Yeah. Yep.
So this is Miami. This is not Venezuela. This is at a Miami gas station. Okay.
Elon Musk
World
is
Cup
doing the
style.
same thing.
I love the World Cup style.
Yeah, exactly.
With no irony at all, which is like they actually are soccer game, football game celebrations. But okay.
And it's so confusing that they're leaving them up. All of them are getting community noted, but leaving them up there. So whose rules are you playing by? If I were to tweet something false and get community noted like that, I'd be really embarrassed and take it down.
Because Mark Twain, isn't it go back to Mark Twain, right? That a lie can travel halfway around the world before truth has a chance to put on its pants. Mm-hmm. And so how many people actually look at community notes?
You get caught with your pants
down. Look at
community
notes. I'll ask our chat room, how many of you guys look at community notes? Do you guys actually pay attention to them? Probably a lot of you do, but you guys are badasses. You guys actually pay attention to the facts. But I think a lot of people do. They scroll through it and they're just seeing, oh my God, Venezuelans are celebrating that Maduro's been captured by the CIA. And they're like, yeah, I guess that's true. And they don't really go a little layer deeper. And so that's why they're keeping them up there, because they're still getting thousands of views. Go ahead, David.
Well, like I said, there's another Twain saying that it's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they've been fooled. So it's like once you fool them, they know that's how propaganda works. You fool them, and then it's hard for everybody else to convince them that they've been fooled because they're not going to believe you.
Yeah, so many people in the chat room are like, yeah, I don't even look at community notes. I don't look at community notes. But other people are like, I read.
Yeah.
But it is crazy because this is happening. Here's another one. Here's another example from Tara Bull. And they all basically say the same thing, almost the same phrasing. This is exactly what the media doesn't want the world to see. Or they change it up a little bit and say, this is exactly what the mainstream media doesn't want the world to see. They're all using almost exact same phrasing. And this video that she shared is, can you put that one back up? Sorry, I was going to read the community note there at the bottom. Yeah, this video shows students participating in the underwear run, which is a tradition at U.S. universities like UCLA or Chapman University, where they run in underwear to de-stress before finals. It was a whole bunch of people. If you zoom down the video, you could see all these people running in their underwear. In America. Has nothing to do with Venezuela, but Venezuela celebrates and Democrats cry.
But also this notion that if you don't like the fact that the U.S. can abduct a foreign leader and indict them on thin charges and,
or false
violate
charges,
sovereignty,
bogus
then you are
charges.
pro-Maduro. How boring. We've seen this. If you're against the war, you love Putin. If you're against the war, you love Hamas. If you're against the war, you love Saddam. Stop it.
We are
It's boring and tired.
How about this? We are.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, that's just it. Conquer, divide, right? You know? You know, so, you know, they don't want anybody that, like, I don't vote, okay? If you're an Israelite, you don't vote anyways, so, you know, and I know all the blowback, right? Oh, well, you don't vote, you don't get to say anything about it because you didn't vote. It's like, you know, hey, George Carlin said it this way, though. He says, I don't vote, so I got every reason to fucking complain. I didn't fucking ask for this. I never fucking asked for this, right? You know, and that's just it. But this is not our rest, you know. We're not caught in this illusion that everybody else is in, right? But nonetheless, though, you know, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. But these people, they just, every 4 years, it's the same old, you know, three blind mice, see how they run, see how they hide, you know, and they get tricked every time, you know, into believing that this guy's going to do better than the other. But this is being amped up, you know, and a lot of things are being amped up ever since the invasion last week. U.S. examining range of options, including military, to take Greenland. So, you know, he's amping this up that he plans to get Greenland. White House says President Trump and his advisors are looking into a range of options in effort to acquire Greenland, and that U.S. military is always an option. President Trump made it well known that acquiring Greenland is national security priority of the U.S. and it's vital to deter adversaries in the Arctic region. The president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue the important foreign policy goal. And of course, utilizing the U.S. military has always been an option as a commander-in-chief's disposal. Added, despite the island already hosting a U.S. military base. Statement comes after Trump said on Monday that Greenland's annexation was imminent, insisting he wanted the Arctic territory right now. So it's happening, you know. He's already threatening Denmark over this. U.S. terrorists attempt to board Russian oil tanker. The Marina vessel had been shadowed by a U.S. warship for days. American terrorists are attempting to board a Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic. Photos shown from the vessel obtained by RT show. The United States European Command announced shortly afterwards that the Marine tanker had been seized by American terrorists based on a warrant issued by a U.S. federal court. The ship was captured in an operation conducted jointly by the U.S. Department of Justice and Department of Homeland and the Department of War. So, like everything else, though, you know, they are, well, we'll just play it. Like everything else, though, you know, it's definitely an act of war. On Tuesday, Russian Foreign Ministry expressed concern over the abnormal situation surrounding the marina. For reasons unknown to us, the Russian vessel is getting excessive attention from the U.S. and NATO militaries, clearly disappropriate to its peaceful status. You know, so pretty much, though. The attempted seizure of the tanker comes just days after the U.S. conducted illegal raid in Venezuela and abducted President Maduro, whom Washington formally charged as drug trafficker. Moscow slammed Babylon's actions as international banditry and demanded Maduro's immediate release. So, like everything else, though, escalations, right? U.S. fixate on Venezuela's oil after kidnapping President Maduro. Well, of course it was about getting the oil. That's what it's always been about. I mean, why Iraq? Oh, the oil. Why Syria? The oil. He even said that we have the oil and we're keeping the oil. Why Libya? Oil. You see the pattern here? And not to mention all those places were pretty much trading without the U.S. dollar. Libya, Syria, obviously they had sanctions against Syria, so Syria could only trade with certain countries anyways, but they pretty much, though, they wiped out Syria, for years, just with their sanctions. Well, Venezuela's economy was totally destroyed, by the sanctions, because it had been happening for quite some time. The United States openly linked its military actions against Venezuela to control the country's vast oil reserves after kidnapping President Maduro, which he is a prisoner of war. We're not going to allow Western Hemisphere to be used as a base of operation of our national adversaries, said Waltz, less than 2 hours before Maduro's first court appearance. Yeah, like you can believe anything Waltz said, they're nothing but Zionists anyways. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Waltz, said on Monday that Washington would not allow its enemies. Okay, actually he is telling the truth about that. In other words, anybody that's against the West, nope, you can't cover that. They have to be loyal to the U.S., and just let the U.S. have their way, and that's just it. They control. You can vote for anybody just as long as they support the U.S. Crude drops after Trump says Venezuela will transfer up to 50 million barrels to the U.S. Oh, isn't that convenient? Well, enjoy it. Enjoy it because, this place is nothing but thievery to begin with. They're nothing but thieves and liars. They didn't earn it. They didn't do anything for it. They stole it. Oil will be sold to its marketplace, and that money will be controlled by me, President of the U.S., to ensure that it used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the U.S. Mostly to benefit the U.S. It ain't going to benefit Venezuela. He added, I have asked Energy Security Secretary Wright to execute his plan immediately. The oil will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the U.S. So there you are. Piracy. Full-blown piracy, And like everything else, though, he's pretty much saying that he's going to have boots in the ground in there. Pete Hegseth, the fucking douche, says that, we're going to have, ground forces there so nobody else could have Venezuela because it's mine on mine.
I mean, we spent decades and decades and purchased in blood and got nothing in return. And President Trump flips the script. He says through strategic action, we can ensure that we have access to additional wealth and resources, enabling a country to unleash that without having to spend American blood.
Yeah, there you go. Just take over the country. Just get rid of its leader, and just pretty much, just safeguard it, right? We will run Venezuela until transition. Well, the transition means that they get somebody loyal to the U.S. Conquer and divide and just pretty much take over. U.S. envoy, the UN says Washington will not allow adversaries to control oil reserves. Isn't that convenient? So like everything else, though, Trump threatened before the abduction of Maduro that the U.S. wants to reclaim energy assets that were nationalized by Caracas. In other words, because they kicked out you remember the video Mine on Mine? Well, they kicked out, because they didn't want to do trades with the U.S., and he says it's mine and I want it all. It belongs to me. Yeah, U.S. Ambassador Waltz declared on the 5th of January that Washington is not going to allow its adversary to control large oil reserves. You cannot continue to have the largest energy reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the U.S. See, there we go. It's a war against Venezuela and its people. We are occupying the country. Remarks came during an emergency meeting at the UN Security Council. Of course, he's saying the opposite, but that's the truth. U.S. military abducted President Maduro and First Lady Cecilia Flores overnight on the 3rd of January following heavy airstrikes that struck Caracas and multiple areas across the country. At least 40 people were killed during the attacks, including civilians, which, just collateral damage. No worries. And we already know that he is a prisoner of war, that there's no doubt about that. But, the videos are very strange. It looks like AI and a whole bunch of other stuff, and that, hey, you know, there is a game that's played. It's called the Illuminati card game. You know, you can check that out. And they all have a script, and it could be a fake arrest. It could be, you know, just a show of things, you know, because it's really about fooling the masses into believing all this shit, right? Fox News panelist slams Trump's military action against Venezuela. Columnist and frequent Fox News guest Kottemf argued that President Trump conducted a regime change in Venezuela and it was not a war. She was willing to send her son to fight. You have to see how some people might be feeling a bit of whiplash here, given that Trump spent 10 years railing against the U.S.-led regime change wars. She explains to Greg Gutfeld on Monday, who used to run Redline, which was, you know, kind of, but we'll go ahead and play this because it's, you know, there's a lot of people that supported Trump that ain't too happy with Trump, you know. Well, I mean, again, you have to be for the war or against the war, you know. You can't just be like, well, you know, it'd be like saying I voted for the war before I voted against it.
You have to see how some people might be feeling a little bit of whiplash here, given that Trump spent 10 years railing against U.S.-led regime change war. His own director of intelligence, as recently as 2 months ago, was railing against
a lot of double
regime
talk.
change war, and then he does one. So
is this a regime change? The regime is still there. As far as I know, vice president.
Yeah, you can tell he's scripted.
We go to a country, we capture their leader, we bomb it, and then we say, we run this country now, and that's not war. But when they say send cocaine over here that people are willingly snorting, that is war.
I think that
doesn't make any sense.
It does to me, in the sense that if this guy is committing crimes against the United States, you lawfully go and get him. He gets his due process here. The regime is still the same. The VP's there. He wasn't the elected. Remember, he wasn't elected legitimately. So he was never considered
there was
the leader of Venezuela by
a lot of other
anybody
people
except for himself. So I think it was, you know, difference of opinion, but he wasn't considered a legitimate leader. He had committed crimes against the country.
Not a legitimate leader, right? You know, well, a lot can be said about Zelensky. Zelensky ain't even supposed to be in power. They should have had elections, but, you know, just as long as the elections favor Zelensky, so what the fuck is that, you know? A lot of double talk, but, you know, these people are paid, and she was going off script. See, but he had to get it back into script. You know how that goes. You know, they got to paint you a story so that way you will support the war. Venezuela installs interim president after kidnapping Maduro. Here we go. It's being sworn in. So there's a new president of Venezuela. Yep, total regime change, new leader of Venezuela. It's not even the vice president, because remember, the vice president ain't allowed to lead either. They already got a new president. An interim president, but they're not going to have elections till somewhere in the middle of March, so this guy's not a legitimate president. So you see it. You see they're sworn in, and they got a new one. Venezuela Parliament inaugurated Rodriguez as interim president 2 days after U.S. terrorists kidnapped President Maduro. She said she was in pain over the kidnapping of our heroes, the hostages in the U.S., referring to Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. Parliament slammed the kidnapping of leftist leader Maduro while vowing support for his stand-in Rodriguez after the U.S. military attack that shocked Caracas and the world. So, there we go. And there's more here.
Meanwhile, protesters have gathered in the Sri Lankan capital to denounce Washington's aggression against Caracas.
This is madness. This is lunatic behavior by Trump. The reason for this is that the Americans are losing their ability to dominate the world.
Yep, and that's exactly what it is. A terrorist state.
Picture
That's
is
a good way to
assembled
put it.
outside of the U.S. Embassy, holding banners condemning U.S.'s intervention in Venezuela. The Indian city of Chennai also saw a similar event with police detaining several protesters. Demonstrations also erupted in the South Korean capital outside of the U.S. Embassy in Seoul. A protester held a fake gun as he wore masks of the U.S. president in a jab at Donald Trump's warmongering policies, and others held signs reading "Hands off Venezuela," and "We condemn Trump's kidnapping of Maduro." Seoul, a close ally of Washington, is yet to react to the U.S.'s act of aggression, even as condemnations are pouring in from across the world.
Yep, and like everything else though, hey, Esau should not be able to hide himself, right? You know, that should be the whole point of this whole thing, is that he cannot hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren's. You know, everybody sees him for the devil that he is. U.S. threats over Greenland make NATO pointless. You know, this is coming from the Prime Minister. Denmark could count on the solidarity of the whole of Europe in the standoff with U.S. Polish Prime Minister Tusk has claimed. NATO would end up losing its meaning if conflicts break out within the bloc. Polish Prime Minister Tusk said, condemning Washington's renewed interest in taking Greenland from Denmark. Yeah, it would be pointless, right? You know, it pretty much would mean that, okay, NATO doesn't need the U.S. anymore. But Trump already planned to break off from NATO anyways. You know, he already said, no member should attack or threaten another member of the North Atlantic Treaty. Otherwise, NATO would lose its meaning if conflict or mutual conflicts occurred within the alliance. Yeah, I mean, what's the point of an alliance if you're just gonna stab them in the back, right? If you're just gonna steal from them, it's like, well, with friends like that, you don't need enemies, right? I mean, it's quite obvious. In the aftermath of its operation to kidnap Venezuela President Maduro, the U.S. declared its aim to seize Greenland from Denmark, with the incident sending global shockwaves. You know, it shouldn't be much of a shock after what they have seen. You know, shouldn't be that much of a shock at all. But here we go. You know, even more so. And brothers put this up. You know.
Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the bishops of Great Millstone. And Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash, Brakatham, to the 144,000 servants as well as the remaining elect of Israel. So real quick, I just came across this post on Instagram. It's on Bloomberg TV, and they're covering the Prime Minister from Denmark. And you know, I've done a lesson on this topic earlier in the morning in regards to the tensions between the United States and Denmark, which, by the way, again, Denmark is one of the 10 horns that we read about in the book of Revelation 17 and 16. It's a part of the NATO alliance. And as I mentioned earlier, what we're seeing in the news is the hatred being stirred up amongst these European nations, amongst the 10 horns, if you will. Their hatred is being stirred up against America. And according to this report here from Bloomberg TV, which I didn't know, it says down here, Denmark Prime Minister Matt Frederiksen said that if President Trump were to attack Greenland, that would mean the end of the NATO alliance. Okay, so what we're seeing right now is the Lord Yahweh Bashmal Shai breaking up Esau's kingdom, okay, bringing about great division amongst these Edomites, amongst these Edomite nations, which is a beautiful thing to see. What we're witnessing is prophecy, right? Even Yahweh Shai said that if Satan be divided against Satan, how can his kingdom stand? Okay, so these Edomites, their kingdom is divided according to the prophecy. Prophecies such as Daniel chapter 2, you can read from verse 38 on down. You know, it speaks about Esau's kingdom being divided. So that's what's happening in the news, man. You know, the Lord is bringing this man's kingdom to an abrupt end. Let me just play this back and I'll read off what's being said here in the video. So she says, firstly, I believe that the US president, i.e. Donald Trump, the king of Babylon, should be taken seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops. That is including our North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which we understand NATO alongside the European Union is the beast. You know, it's the revival of the ancient pagan Roman Empire. Today, with America spearheading that whole hegemony, NATO being the military end of that alliance, and the European Union being the economic, political division of that hegemony. Okay, so this woman is saying that if he attacks, it's the end of NATO. That is including our NATO, and thus the security that has been provided since the end of World War II, which is known as the second woe in the Bible. And what does it say about the second woe? Revelation 11 verse 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly, World War III, which is on the horizon. Okay? We're in the midst of World War III. It's going to escalate, and it's going to escalate to a nuclear war, and it's going to result in the complete destruction of this place that you know as America, Babylon the Great. Okay? Obadiah verse 7. It's going down, man. Denmark has always been a good ally of the United States. We want to continue to be so. But I also have to address that some of what is being said from the American side, and of course, we will not accept a situation where we and the Greenland are threatened in this way. So, she ain't backing down. You know, we'll see what comes of this, but again, this is what's happening in terms of geopolitics, in terms of Esau's kingdom, which is currently being divided through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai Shai. So I pray and hope that you brothers and sisters out there were edified. This is just a brief update pertaining to the lesson that I've done earlier. Until next time, I'll say Shalom.
Yep. So there you have it, you know. If Satan be divided against Satan, right? You know, then his kingdom will not stand. And we're at that time now, you know, that we're near the end of Esau's rulership. And we're at the beginning of ours. You know, because first the house of David would be built, right? You know, and that we'd be put back in our place, you know. And knowing what your lot is, as Apostle Tahar says, it's like, well, where else am I going to be? You know, what else am I going to do? I'm plugged in. This is it. This is what I do. I have nowhere else to go. You know, the same thing was said of Peter. Well, where else will I be? You know, when questioned, right? Where else am I going to be? Yes, Peter did deny Yahweh Shai 2 times, but after that, solidified. You know, that even those 2 denials, he was still solidified in Yahweh Shai. Well, this is it. What else would I be doing? You know? A couple of weeks ago, December 22nd, not that I wasn't paying attention to what was happening to my dog crying out in pain, but I knew what I was supposed to be doing that morning. You know, not that she was just tossed aside because I was attending to her at the same time, but still doing lesson. It was my time with her, you know, because she was always sitting in the room with me while I do a lesson, and you know, trying to attend to her and still do the lesson, because this is my lot. This is what I do. This is what I wake up to in the morning. I click on articles. I click on brothers' videos that are teaching, looking for edifying videos, and getting the daily bread. You know, this is the daily bread. You know, this is the newspaper that I read, right? You know, and that's just it. Getting the daily bread and then going about my day, and that's you know, the lot that I'm in. Where else am I going to be? I want to make sure that I am still diligent about this thing. Apostle Tahar, a couple of years ago, had declared, you know, it's like, look, when John was on the island of Patmos, you know, he was still teaching every day. in prison. So you're supposed to be doing a video every day, and that was declared. And I have stuck to it, you know, and if you missed one, you do 2 the next day, and so on, you know. Hey, you know, we're getting into a time that AI is changing our videos, changing the platform, and that the opportunity to do this ain't going to be there always. And then what will you be renowned by, you know? What are you going to be renowned for? You know, because Yahweh Shai sees everything. The angels see everything, you know. So I want to be renowned as a man that was diligent, did the best that he could to do a lesson every day and stayed grounded, was diligent. And that's where you got to be, especially when you're reading things like this. You know that Yahweh Shai is about to return. You know that you're seeing the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which is right there in Syria, and you see that Iran's about to be attacked too. And Apostle Tar has been telling us for years, man, once they attack Iran, that's it. There's one more thing, and that's coming around the corner too. You know, the MOTB will be pretty much declared very soon. And there are events leading up to that. And I believe things are just going to really pick up this year. 4 dead in clashes between Syria government and Kurdish forces in Aleppo. State news agency blamed the SDF for the clashes, while the SDF blamed groups affiliated with the government. So, you know, ISIS versus SDF. Because, again, ISIS runs Syria, even though they call it Hayat al-Shem, which is a breakoff from ISIS, but still ISIS affiliated. Yet at the same time, you got all these Syrian rebels, if you will. I mean, pretty much, though, was just destroy the government of Syria that was in place, you know, so they could have their way, just like they just did with Venezuela, and install their own puppet government, which they had. And like everything else, though, you know, there was a deal last year, which obviously it's not going to happen, but the deal was that the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is led by the U.S. and its proxies, was to merge into the new Syrian government. And that's never going to happen because Trump has the oil and he's keeping the oil. Clashes between government personnel and Kurdish-led forces in the north city of Aleppo killed 5 people on Tuesday, with both sides trading blame over who started the fighting. And like everything else, though, the Kurds has always been something that the U.S. and the Israeli state have been able to control by falsely misleading them that they would have their own territory, right? So this has always been about that, which is also known as PKK and YPG, which is what the Syrian Democratic Forces really are, as applause to stay, you know, because they use the Kurds as well in Iraq, and they got screwed back then. They always getting screwed and exploited because, like everything else, though, they have their own ambitions, and they believe everything that Babylon the Great tells them. And so, like everything else, though, U.S., they ain't going to back them. Of course they ain't going to back them. You know, when push comes to shove. Say that Hayat al-Shem was a lot more stronger, right? You know, was a more stabilized government. But wait, Turkey will come in eventually if things get too far out of control, right? Gomer and all its troops. We're going to see a lot of shit happening in Syria because they said Syria is about to be lit up as well. State news agency Sana, which is a Syrian Arab news agency, reported that the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces targeted the area of Shinan roundabout, resulting in the death of 1 defense ministry member. It later said 3 civilians, including 2 women, were killed in SDF bombing of residential neighborhoods in Aleppo's city's Al-Mudan neighborhood. SDF, in a statement issued before the state media reported, said groups affiliated with the government targeted the Sheikh Moscow neighborhood with a reconnaissance drone, resulting in the death of 1 resident and wounding of 2 others. So, like everything else, though, you know, continuous skirmishes, right? Syrian military gives SDF deadline to leave Aleppo after deadly clashes. So, you know, pretty much so, it's like, okay, you need to leave these occupied territories that you're in, or else, pretty much. Syrian government said they will consider 2 SDF-controlled Kurdish areas of Aleppo closed military zones, ordering civilians to leave the enclaves. Syrian forces said that Aleppo's SDF-controlled Kurdish majority neighborhoods will be considered closed military zones as of 1500 hours which is 1200 hours Greenwich Mean Time on Wednesday. So that's today, that's already happened. Creating humanitarian quarters for civilians to leave the area before then, sparking fears of a military assault on the area. So, you know, this could pick up again, you know. And like everything else, though, you know, Esau's being found out now. I got a brother's video that's in action now, and I will play a little bit of it, and then you can catch his video live a little bit later. Well, I mean, you can. I'm pretty sure he's still live now, but you know, like everything else, though, you know, morning news and prophecy. I always look at his videos, but I'm just going to play that as I close out, you know, because we're watching prophecy unveil, and Esau cannot hide himself, right? You know, he's being sought out. Everybody knows about the plans to invade Greenland, and he's threatened Colombia. He's threatened Mexico, and of course he's threatened Cuba, and also threatening Iran. You know, that if Iran, you know, goes after those peaceful protesters, it goes after the Mossad agents planted there, you know, takes any action against them, that the U.S. will intervene. So you got a lot of things happening, right? But everybody knows about the plan. Everybody knows that this has nothing to do with drug cartels, you know. Except for the retards, I believe everything that Trump tells them, right? I mean, they want you to believe that, but I don't think the masses are fooled, you know. Concerning Edom, this is Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 7. Concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Has counsel perished from the prudent? Has their wisdom vanished? Well, it's a rhetorical question, meaning that nobody believes them anymore. Nobody believes the fucking mainstream news. Everybody knows that it's all scripted. They know it's bullshit. They know that everything that they're listening to is fucking bullshit. And eventually people are going to stand up in even larger numbers. It's just right now they've got so much lithium being sprayed in the air and everything else that's just kept everybody docile. Wait till they crash the economy. Wait till an economic collapse comes. Then they'll be writing over everything. You know? And there is an economic collapse happening. And it's going to get bigger and bigger. Verse 10, I have made Esau bare. I've uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren's, and his neighbors, and he is not. You know, what's that talking about? That just means that he can't fool the masses anymore. You know, and because of what he did to us, right? For thus saith the Lord Yahweh Shai, behold, those whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. That's talking about the Israelites, you know. He's oppressed the Israelites. And art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. So, hey, you're going to be found out. You're going to drink of this cup, you know. You're going to go into slavery. And your kingdom is about to be destroyed. For I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, that Basra, which is another key word for America, because that's what Basra is now, shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual waste. This place is about to become the lake of fire. You want to know what the lake of fire is? You're in it right now if you live in Babylon, because that's what it's going to be when we are, you know, the elect of us see it from afar off. We'll see this whole place look like a lake, just burning. So hopefully this has been edifying. I'm going to close this out with this brother teaching this morning, Shalom, and it's called Collective Consciousness in Thy Forehead. So you know what that's talking about. The MOTB in the forehead. Shalom, Barak the Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadosh, Wa Abba Babal. Brakathum, Jehovah elect. Shalom.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadosh, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards our brothers in peace and blessing and salutation to the hope elect after pushing the word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashem Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom for the hope elect of believers and listeners when they came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shah. All right, and what I want to get into this morning, morning news and prophecy. All right, dealing with this concept of collective consciousness. All right, and in our forehead, because as we know, according to prophecy, dealing with the MOTB. All right, the two places on the body that I mentioned, okay, is the hands, the left and the right hand, and the forehead, okay, and what we see happening, real time as we speak, is the devil is rolling out technology, okay, to go under the skin, okay, which is the RFID microchip. All right, he has the RFID microchip to go into the hand, all right, and he's going into his neural link, to go into your forehead. Okay, and he also has microchips to go into the forehead. So this devil, all the technology that our forefathers spoke about in the prophecies, all the technology exists, because our forefathers, Isaiah, Jeremiah, okay, Joel, they spoke about those missiles, okay, before they were invented. Now that technology exists, you see, now the technology to fulfill, okay, the prophecy concerning those arrows, okay, the heavens rolled up like a scroll, which the mushroom cloud from the missile exploding. You see, now all the technology exists, all right, and it's active. What John the Revelator is seeing, he's seen transhumanism, he's seen people merging with the devil's technology, man. Okay, the RFID chip, the neural link, he's seen these things, man. Okay, so we're in the time of all things being fulfilled because now all technology exists. Okay, information shall increase, knowledge shall run to and fro. Well, the internet, okay, the unicorn, speaking of the internet, the net is cashed out. Speaking of the internet, all these things now exist and are functioning, okay, for the fulfillment of prophecy, man. Okay, and what we have to understand, what we're seeing with the devil, because we're going to go into this concept of collective consciousness, okay, and this is nothing new. Ancient, okay, empires, have tried to incorporate collective consciousness of the masses, man. All right, that's why we always go here. So I want to get some accounts and precepts, some accounts and a few precepts dealing with, the concept of collective consciousness, and then we're going to go into a video. I got something pulled up on chat as well, So I'll run down and get into all of it, and it's edifying. So let's go here. Let's start off here with Ecclesiastes chapter 1, okay, and 9, and we'll read it in the NLT as well. This is Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. It says, "The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. There is no new thing under the sun." Okay, so the things that we see playing out under the sun, which is in the earth, scriptures speak about under the sun, it's talking about within the planet Earth, man, which is under the sun. Okay, so what we're seeing playing out in the earth is no new thing. Okay, the devil just has more technology. Esau Edom, he just has more reach, to take it farther than any other heathen. All right, but this doesn't mean that he's going to pull it off. Okay, so when you go here in the NLT real quick, Ecclesiastes 1 and 9 in the NLT said, "History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new." Nothing under the sun is truly new. So what we're seeing, all right, is an old concept, okay, just with new technology, man. All right, Esau was just the latest to try to pull off what he's trying to do with his technology, man, with his new world order. Okay, so let's go back to Genesis, okay, and we go to Genesis 11. Okay, so here is you get what? Universal language. You see Bible confusion. Okay, so when you go to Genesis 11 and 1, it says, "And the whole earth was a one language and a one speech." And this is what the devil is trying to get everything back to. See, Esau Edom is trying to revise the Tower of Babel. It's just digital, technological now. Okay, he wants the whole earth of one language, one mindset, all right, in complete rebellion against the Most High. Okay, he wants the world to agree with him in his rebellion against the Most High. Okay, this is the system that he's herding people into. Is bigger than buying and selling. Buying and selling will just be an indicator of this technology. Okay, but ultimately, this man wants people to be on one accord with this rebellion that he's on. Okay, it says, "And the whole earth was a one language and a one speech, and it came to pass that they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime, all right, had they for mortar." So they were going into what? The infrastructure. They were getting ready to build an infrastructure, okay, for their ideology. Okay? Esau is building the infrastructure for his ideology, man. Okay? This is what we're seeing, with technology, is that this devil, he's building out his infrastructure, okay, based on the ideology of rebelling against the Most High, of replacing the Most High, okay, with human wisdom, with human understanding, with human authority, okay? This is what we're seeing from this guy, man, okay? So let's go back to Genesis 11:4, okay? And it says, "And they said, Go and let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad among the face of the whole earth." And they were doing this to avoid being flooded out. Okay, in their mind, they were going to build infrastructure that was going to allow them to continue to do what they want to do, but not have to deal with the punishment from the Most High. Okay, this is straight rebellion. Okay, because they understood the flood and why it came. In their mind, well, we're going to sidestep the judgment of the Most High. We're going to build this tower where we can still do what we want to do. Okay, and have a refuge from, all right, the judgment from on high. Okay, so this is what this devil is doing with this technology. He's trying to tap into merging man with technology to where, look, you don't have to abide by the rules, okay, of the Most High. We got a way to where you can still be blessed. We can bless you. Okay, we can sidestep the Most High with technology, man. Okay, and that's been the concept of this devil's rulership, okay, since the beginning. You see? And the Lord came down to see the city and tower which the children of men, okay, build it. And the Lord said, Behold, this people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go and let us, okay, go down, and there confound their languages, that they may not understand one another's speech, man. So the Most High broke that up. He sent those angels to confound the speeches of men, to break up that project, man, that enterprise. Okay? And this time, he's going to do it by the way of Yahushua. He's going to send Yahushua to come and break up, okay, this enterprise, this project that Esau, Edom, has going in the earth, man, this rebellion. Okay, so the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build this city. They couldn't finish it. Okay, Esau, he's not going to be able to pull this off, man. Okay, Yahushua is coming with judgment. He's coming with fire. This time, Yahushua is going to burn, all right, this technological tower about. Okay, but this devil, he's going to be confounded, disappointed. Okay, he's going to go into confusion. You see? So he's not going to be able to pull this thing off, man. Okay, and he's, beating his chest and, making it seem as if he's just, two screws and a nail away from pulling this off, man. But he, all right, not going to be able to achieve this, man, because it's not written. Okay, we serve a righteous power. He's going to come with righteous judgment, man. Okay, in the right time.
Yep.
Okay.
And his ambition of trying to.
That's in Proverbs. Let me see if I can find this.
His ambition of trying to get it done.
Scattered away evil.
The plans will be thwarted by Yahweh Shai. Because Yahweh will send the destroyer, Yahweh Shai.
Yep, this is Proverbs 28. Okay. Let's get this Proverbs 28. Oh, it's what? Yep, it says, Proverbs 28 says, "A king that sitteth in the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes." A king that sitteth in the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Okay? So Yahushua is their king, and he's coming to judge on their throne, their chariot. Okay? Yahushua is going to bring his throne from the spiritual realm to this realm, and he's going to scatter, he's going to break up, okay, this evil empire, man, ran by Esau Edom. Okay, we know the eyes of the Lord, what? The angels.
Yep.
Okay, the chariots, man. So it says a king, Proverbs 28, a king that sitteth in the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Okay.
And you can catch this brother's lesson. He does one every day. And he's got many channels. The main one is GMS Prisoners of Yahweh Shai. You know, so look for his lesson because it's a good one. Shalom.